Welcome, Gunrunner.
Over the many years I've been on YouTube, I've very much specialised on all things Atari, and I've made a concerted effort to tell the stories behind all their unreleased consoles and computers. I've done videos on all the different unreleased versions of both the Atari 2600 video computer system and the Atari 8-bit computer range. I've looked at early unreleased systems like the Game Brain and Atari's electronic games range, and I've covered the many cancelled consoles from Trammell era Atari, including the Super XE game system, the mysterious Mirai, the 32-bit Panther, and the last console developed at the original Atari, the Jaguar 2. I've even covered unreleased add-ons like the STCD and Atari 7800 Laserdisc. So I'm sure everyone is wondering what there's left to cover. Well, good question, especially in relation to this video, but you'd probably be surprised to hear that there's still a fair amount of stuff left to cover, including the likes of the Atari Cosmos and the full story behind the much rumoured Atari ST based console. But we're going to cover off 5 such candidates in this very video. You see, there are a multitude of more unusual Atari prototypes that have found their way into the wild and now change hands for very high prices. These are systems that don't really need a whole video of their own and have shorter stories that can be told in a video such as this. So I have 5 fascinating stories for you about rare and unusual Atari console prototypes, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on them at the end.
Arcade players, get ready. The new Atari 5200 Super System is here. With a controller so advanced it plays arcade. Graphics so real it looks arcade. With arcade hits you can't play on any other system. No other home video system can touch it. The new Atari 5200 Super System. It's as good as you are, maybe even better. Next time.
So let's start off this list with a pretty simple one, the Video System X, which was nothing more than an early version of what became the Atari 5200. But what is especially curious about this is that Atari produced a number of production quality prototypes with this name on, most of which were used at events and expos or by large retailers like Sears to promote the upcoming console and secure orders. This version was first shown in person at the Summer CES show in 1982. But photos of the console were also shown in many magazines of the time too. As you can see, the console is all but identical to the finished 5200, but what is very different is the associated games that were shown. As you can see here, these had red boxes, not the silver ones that we all know and love. They were likely just mock-ups though, as no games with this design have ever shown up, unlike the consoles themselves, as there are a surprising amount of Video System X units out in the wild. What does remain a bit of a mystery though is the all-black model, as there only seems to be one grainy photo of this on the internet, and despite several people claiming to own one, it's never been properly shown or documented. So if you're lucky enough to possess one in your collection, please get it out there for us all to see. The Atari 5200 is nicknamed Big Sexy for a reason. Despite its sleek and attractive design, the console is absolutely huge. How big are here, you ask? Well, at 15 inches by 13 inches wide and over 4 inches tall, it's bigger than even the original Xbox. The case even included a hatch on the back that you could open to store your controllers in too, or beers if you're the angry video game nerd. The huge size of the console did nothing to help the cost of producing the thing either. Atari had already removed 2 of the original 4 joystick ports in a previous cost saving measure and planned to reduce these expenses even more with a complete redesign, just as we had already seen with the 2600 Junior. This new model, which was originally known as Atari 5100 and codenamed Little Pam, was fully prototyped and announced to the press, but never made it into production. We all know about the great North American video game crash and how hard it hit Atari, and I'm sure you already guessed that this sealed the fate of this new model. The 5200 Junior was pretty much dead on arrival, cancelled before it even had a chance to turn things around for Atari, and the takeover of Atari's consumer division by Jack Tramiel was the final nail in the coffin. Jack saw no future for the so-called Super System and discontinued the 5200 almost immediately, preferring to concentrate on the redesigned 2600 and a full worldwide release of the 7800 Pro System instead. This is the only prototype console on this list that wasn't actually created by Atari, but it was set to be an officially licensed product with Fuji related branding, so it definitely counts. It's also one of the most little known examples on this list, with a very interesting story behind it that includes the approval of one of Atari's founders. After the reverse merger of Atari Corporation and JTS Storage in 1996, the company sold off all of its existing inventory to various liquidators. One of those was a company called O'Shea's Electronics, who bought up huge quantities of both Atari 2600 and 7800 games. They were struggling to shift this stock, and so came up with the bright idea to create their own new limited edition Atari 7800 console that they could bundle with batches of these games to sell them through. They soon hired a company called Legacy Engineering to do the honours, and came out with a design and pre-production prototype. Now all the Atari fans out there will know that Legacy Engineering was owned by one Kurt Vendel, who also founded the Atari Museum, which has proved to be an invaluable resource for people like me over the years. Sadly, Kurt passed away in 2020 due to a number of health complications, but this is his own explanation of how the project came about. We did a new case design, replicated the original Atari 7800 boards, provided all of the chip data for the Tia and Maria, and it was then up to O'Shea's to finance the tooling. They were looking at around 80k for the plastics and around 240k for the chip dies, so they were trying to find factories in China that would do all the work, make the systems, and then he would sell the 200,000 odd units with 5 games each, and then pay the factories back. Well, as you can imagine, no one jumped to that opportunity. It didn't help that he would also have to pay Atari a 500k royalty as well. So where does the signature edition bit come in then, I hear you ask? Well, O'Shea's decided to splash even more cash by getting Atari co-founder Nolan Bushnell on board to help promote the new product, as well as have his own signature emblazoned on each unit. There would be 3 case colours, black, white and clear, though I can't seem to find a photo of the latter anymore sadly. It's unknown how many of these prototypes are out there, although one of the engineers who worked on it claims that at least 25 were built. A black one was sold on eBay in 2008, but the link is now dead, and nobody thought to record how much it sold for sadly, which would have been interesting to know. This is certainly one of the most sought after Atari oddities out there anyway. Shortly after the release of the Jaguar CD add-on in 1995, Atari Corporation announced that they would also be releasing an all-in-one version of the console known as the Jaguar Duo. This new system would be along the same lines as other combination consoles like the NEC Turbo Duo and JVC Wonder Mega, which put together the Sega Mega Drive and Mega CD. This would save potential new owners from having to buy both the console and the add-on, saving them both money and shelf space in the process. Atari first announced this console in the press of the time, but a mock-up of the unit was also shown at several behind-the-scenes press events. It was never actually shown working though, which certainly suggests that the Jaguar Duo never got beyond the early prototype phase. However, this is where the story of this one gets somewhat mysterious, because there is some evidence that suggests otherwise. There is at least one person who claims to own the Jag Duo case, with no internals, whilst there is another person who owns an actual motherboard. So did the two somehow get separated, or were they actually produced individually and never put together? There are scanned and documented schematics for the motherboard design out there, should anyone decide to try and create a Jag Duo for themselves. And speaking of somebody making their own Jag Duo, there is also the Play 1, created by Simon 10p6 Daniel, who's been promising to make these available for people to buy for a very long time now, but has never produced anything other than his own units. Shame, as it's certainly a smart bit of kit that would no doubt change hands for a pretty large wad of cash. Now, I bet you all thought that the Atari VCS was the first and only new console put out by the modern iteration of Atari. But you'd actually be wrong. Well, kind of. Because this is more of a hybrid system really, but then so is the VCS I suppose. At E3 in 2014, Atari showed what they claimed was their first new piece of hardware since the Jaguar, in the form of the SuperZoom Phablet. Yeah, they were clearly trying to sound cool with that name and failed pretty hard. This was an Android based tablet that came with some kind of custom firmware that launched into an Atari store where you could buy their new Android based games like Breakout Boost, Outlaw and Haunted House Revisited. What is especially interesting about this is that it came in a range of rather confusing varieties. Firstly, there are the standard phablets, and then there's the so-called premium line. They came with much more powerful Intel processors inside. And then within these two groups, you also have proper gaming tablets that have built-in controls and standard pads with nothing to set them apart from other tablets on the market except for the Atari logo on the back. But that's not all. If you choose one of the standard tablets, there are a range of accessories you can use with them, including controllers, speakers, headphones and stick-on thumbsticks. And within these there are also numerous variations too, just to confuse the range of options even further. It's safe to say that the reception to these devices was less than enthusiastic, and this show was the first and only time the Atari SuperZoom Phablets were shown. I'm not sure if any were actually sold at the event or whether they were just for show, and I've never encountered anyone who has one in their possession sadly, but it would certainly be an interesting oddity to add to any Atari collection, even if it was an incredibly ill thought out and misguided venture. And that completes my deep dive into 5 rare and unusual prototype Atari consoles. Are there any others you can think of that should have made the list? Or are you lucky enough to own one of these obscure oddities and want to tell me more about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so please get typing. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons who continue to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Grady Haynes, D Vaughan, Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Sethy Robinson, Carl Olsen, Ozzy B, DOS Gamerman and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host extra content including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.